It's Fantasy Sanctuary. It is Monday, which means it is time for another best ball draft with myself and Tyler. But this week, joined by a very special guest, one of our favorite people on Twitter, on YouTube, across the fantasy sports industry, Neil Orfield. Neil, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Yeah, happy to be here. It's a little bit early of a start for me, but yeah, 4:30 feels pretty good to start a stream. Looking forward to it.
4:30 for you, 10:30 for me. We're so multicultural. Tyler, how are you doing?
Doing fantastic. I think we completed the international triangle from Houston to Minnesota to the UK. That feels like we're triangulating. I'm sure Underdog headquarters is somehow in the middle to complete the stack. We're doing great. It's a Monday, and I'm excited to talk ball with Neil.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting some proper news now, like the kind of stuff that actually moves ADP. Like over the last week, you had Aaron Rodgers signing, you've got Nick Chubb potentially signing with the Texans, you've got all these little bits that are trickling through. Neil, do you feel like there's been stuff going on in best ball drafts over the last week that has kind of caught you going, that player's going there now? Or do I need to adjust my rankings much?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers is clearly like he's being drafted now. He's moving up a little bit, just having the clarity of where he's going and like just having one more stack you can complete with Pittsburgh. I think he'll continue to move up. Nick Chubb, I've been doing mostly slow drafts. I haven't really seen him go any earlier than the 18th round. I think maybe in fast drafts he is, but I've actually taken a few shares of Nick Chubb after being totally out on him last year. Now I'm like 18th round seems like a totally fine flyer, like could have some good volume there. But yeah, I have not seen him move up too much so far. I don't know if others have had different experiences there.
What about you, Tyler? Because I know you got into it on Twitter about Nick Chubb.
I didn't really. I'm enjoying this whole throw some shit talk out there and don't engage with it much. But now I'm seeing
that's the Twitter way.
Exactly. I'm seeing some folks that the Chubb fans are going to be taking him. Looks like 150-ish or so. Given signing plus the injury news, which wasn't even as accurate because it seems like as soon as we found out Mixon was in a boot, he's now out of the boot and just nursing foot ankle, which, I mean, to me, it sounds like we're precautionarily taking care of vet injuries early in OTAs. Yeah. This is really where the young guys are getting, prepped and stepped. And I'm really only worried about rookies that are missing this time that could continue versus the vets. They don't need a whole lot of time for install, especially when there's not a ton of turnover. But yeah, I mean, the news spikes are going to happen. And then, I'm imagining Chubb is going to be like, what, 180s, 170s, maybe 160s. I mean, this is kind of reminiscent of Zeke last year where, did he get as high as the 150s at some point before kind of settling into 160s, 170s? Sure. Do I have any interest in chasing that profile right now? No. It seemed like he was healthy enough to be signed a few months ago when we saw the workout video of him kind of, matrix running across the hill back and forth. So it's like, okay, good. I'm glad he's healthy enough to run. That doesn't mean he's, much like my take last year, doesn't mean he's healthy enough to truly be a difference maker. And it just seems like this team right now said, hey, we have two running backs nursing injuries. Let's bring in two other guys. J.K. Dobbins was their first call about a month ago, seemingly. So it seemed like just a money thing. Hey, we can get Chubb, who's a vet. We like vets for a lot cheaper than J.K. Dobbins. He's in the room. I think any more than anything right now, it shows that the team kind of views that, based on where this sits, if Mixon goes down, they kind of already tipped their hand with this last year. They had the pass down specialist in Derrick Ogunbowale, and then they had Dame Pierce, and then Cam Akers mixing in between both the early down and the third down stuff, depending on 2-minute or not. So it sounds like Chubb would seemingly be the guy that steps in for that Dame Pierce potential work with Woody Marks, Dare, and God knows who else that they'll choose to mix in by the time the year starts. So, I mean, if anything, it just tells me that it signals that I'm not really interested in an RB2 in this offense if it's going to be a 2 to 3 man committee behind Mixon, because Chubb's really not been used as a full down workhorse and he doesn't have his efficiency. This offensive line's not elite, and it's going to be a split role. So kind of just not touching anybody behind Mixon right now. And I'll wait to see how far Mixon falls down, but I'm not truly worried until I'm told to be worried. And right now, the messaging from the coaching staff that has been pretty honest about injuries thus far said we expect him to be ready by training camp. So,
yeah, it's just one of those situations that just like I think that they've sided towards a veteran because they want the pass protection because they know their offensive line is going to be terrible as well. But we've got plenty to get into tonight. Like we are going to jump into a BBM draft in a little while, but first, you don't bring someone on like Neil and not talk about who they like at the minute and who they don't like. Neil, we're going to talk some targets and fades. I asked you for a few of your favorite players and a few of your least favorite players, and we've put mine and Tyler's alongside as well. But Neil, let's start with your targets first. George Pickens was the number one guy, like probably one of the biggest movers since Best Ball Mania moved up in terms of in a meaningful way because he climbed so much after the trade with the Cowboys. Do you see Pickens as somebody that you want only as part of like Dak stacks, or do you just like where George Pickens is going, he still feels undervalued to you?
Yeah, just like where he's going in drafts right now. I think the ADP, the latest I've seen is around like pick 55. I'm willing to take him at that 4 or 5 turns, so reach just a little bit for George Pickens. I just think really good receiver who has never really had a great quarterback. Like he's generally had really bad quarterbacks and still had major spike weeks with those bad quarterbacks. So now he obviously moves from being the wide receiver 1 to the wide receiver 2 on his team. But just the offense is so much better. The quarterback is so much better. They don't really have any like trustworthy running back. So I think they're just going to be throwing a ton. I think he could be, I wouldn't be that shocked if he were like a 2-3 turn right now, and you can get him in the 5th round consistently. So yeah, I just love George Pickens right now.
And Tyler, where are you at on George?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of concern about what the true shoddy takeover is going to be, but along with Neil, I've kind of just decided to simplify the process because we're going to have a lot of chaos. We kind of see this every year that even if our fears or bull cases one way or the other pans out for a chunk of the season, things adjust. And one thing that I've just decided to accept is the Cowboys seem to have accepted that, they just can't afford to make a lot of moves. So they're just going to devalue the running back position and turn out what they get and whatever. And so, yeah, if the running back room is pretty abysmal, then it seems to, think that, okay, it looks like at its core, if this team's going to win, it's going to have to pass. And if it's going to pass, it's going to have to pass quite often. And it seems pretty consolidated down to, Pickens doing the vertical deep stuff, allowing Lamb to kind of just work the power slot, middle of the field, and soak up a little bit lower ADOT type of stuff. Ferg is there. But yeah, it just seems pretty condensed. And from that standpoint, like Neil said, this is likely the best quarterback and offensive scheme that Pickens will have seen in quite some time. He's quite good. And so, I don't know how often he's going to actually get opportunities in this offense. For as much as Shoddy's been known to cook, he's also been known, and the Cowboys in kind have known to been throttle it down. But, I like the upside case that if Pickens is going to hit, it's going to hit big. He is a yak threat as well. So I'm hoping that they don't just deploy him as a big vertical X and he gets some work middle of the field. He gets some work short. And he and Lamb are allowed to kind of be this versatile 2-pronged attack. And based on that pure ceiling, I do agree that he's one of the more intriguing guys to go target, especially from a contingency standpoint. If Lamb misses time, Pickens then steps into the 1 role, and you're taking that guy in the 2nd round, potentially the 1-2 turn. And so from a season-long perspective and a single spike week perspective, especially for a team that is like, hey, we got to make the playoffs. I'm very much into it. And it seems like I have a hard time taking other people over him when I think about how good the offense could be with him being this like hyper efficient 2.
Yeah, Neil, like how much do you kind of pay attention to what like George Pickens was doing as a route runner over the last couple of years and think that that's an area where we'll get more out of him now?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been 2 years ago it was like he can't separate at all. Like that was kind of the narrative. Then he got a little bit better from that perspective. He was always good in terms of contested catches. So I think he's improving as a player already. And then now he moves into this offense where he should be a lot better. So yeah, I think he's clearly has some room for improvement, and he's making those improvements, and that's what you love to see with a young wide receiver. He was already really good. So yeah, just if he can continue to improve at all and he steps into a better system, I mean, wheels up.
Yeah, well, let's stick with the theme of wide receivers and terrible quarterback play. Like Josh Downs, terrible quarterback play last year. Like Josh Downs was kind of one of those names that quite a lot of us within the best ball community felt like was a sneaky value, a better value than Michael Pittman, who's gone like the third round or so. And we kind of got enough confirmation bias to be like, yeah, Josh Downs is good. Josh Downs is probably better than Michael Pittman, but we didn't really see any ceiling case. You've got him down as one of your targets. Is this contingent on Anthony Richardson missing time? Is this contingent on like Daniel Jones just being the best quarterback who Josh Downs has had for his very young career?
I mean, I'm drafting him already, and we don't know one way or the other if Anthony Richardson is going to miss time. I think it's fairly likely that Daniel Jones wins that job. Like I don't think that the team is really committed to Anthony Richardson in any major way. It's funny. I actually did 2 drafts. Tyler was my third guest, but the first 2 drafts that I did last Wednesday on my stream were with Jacob Sanderson and then with Nez. And in the first draft, Jacob Sanderson, who's a huge Colts fan, was like, I think that it's going to be Daniel Jones. I think he's going to win the job. And then Nez had me take Anthony Richardson for the upside there. And I think both are like, they both made like really, really strong cases about like, yeah, Anthony Richardson might have major upside if he wins that job. But then we learned afterwards that Anthony Richardson is now hurt. So I think that just makes it, probably pushes Nez away from Anthony Richardson at this point. And Daniel Jones just more and more likely to win that job. So I think that will help Josh Downs. I think it's just kind of a bet on the talent. He is like, we're getting him at a pretty big discount relative to his talent because of the uncertainty with the quarterback position. And it's looking more and more likely that it's going to be Daniel Jones instead of Anthony Richardson. And even Richardson, like who knows, he could take a step forward at some point. Like he might not be done growing as a player. So maybe he just gets a little bit better, but it's really just a bet on the talent where like, I think that he's being drafted, maybe not at his floor, but like pretty close to his floor. And I think that there's a lot of room to move up if there is some improvement in quarterback play.
Yeah, like last year I did a bit of a deep dive into quarterback scoring, and like basically if you average 5 rush attempts per game between 2018 and 2023, you had like a 64% chance of being a QB1 in points per game and like a 50% chance of being a QB1 in total points. Like the 5 rush attempts per game is such a cheat code. Richardson, like when you look at guys past 125 in ADP, he's the only one who averaged more than like 20 rushing yards per game at like 43, I think, off the top of my head. So it's obviously upside in him, and I'm definitely struggling with him a bit. But Tyler, when you see JJ McCarthy on here, is that just Neil being a homer, or are you with him and wanting to draft JJ McCarthy as well?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, this is as simple as it gets for me. Every quarterback except for one attached to the KOC system has been fantasy viable at worst to a fantasy top 10, top 6 starter in fantasy points per game, in volume, in efficiency. We as a community were begging and pleading God for Nick Mullins to start week 17 2 years ago to feed our beloved Minnesota weapons. Nick Mullins, a career backup who sucks, but in this Shaney style of offense has just gifted us Winston levels of glory. So we have a rookie coming in who is getting to, from a health perspective, come in day one, soak up all these starter reps. He's not splitting reps like he was last year with Darnold. So from a system perspective, we know it's QB friendly, and now he's going to get the entire offseason to get integrated. The O-line got maybe the top third, if not top 2 amount of resources added inside. So from an interior perspective, we know that, interior pressure is the hardest and most disruptive on quarterbacks, and they improved that section quite a bit. They add Jordan Mason. So as far as the rushing game is concerned, more efficiency there, while Aaron Jones can be the passing threat he is in this offense. And Hawkinson coming into his year off of an ACL. So physically more efficient and just physically back to his athletic profile. No quarterback is walking into a better system as a whole. And from that standpoint, he's far underpriced, and he has this rushing floor that is undetermined, but we know it's there. We will find out, is it Joe Burrow Stroud-esque? Is it Drake May Scramble-esque? We're not gonna know, but it's a little bit extra that we didn't necessarily get with some of these other KOC quarterbacks. And we know that that can add to the overall ceiling of JJ McCarthy. So from a standpoint of that, the only downside is we don't know who he is. That said, we have seen a whole spectrum of who you can be in this offense and be very good. And it's not like Darnold was any world beater as a fantasy producer or as a real life quarterback coming into last year, and was able to just absolutely crush week in and week out. And his spikes mattered way more than his floor games. So even if this is just a highly efficient, low volume compared to what we saw at times, that can still be extremely efficient because, you know, he's just going to get to press the easy button. So from that standpoint, it's really hard not to be in on him on all formats, given, you know, he was an uncertain prospect, but he had some really good markers, like from pressure, from third down, and efficiency and accuracy. And those seem to be things that easily translate to the NFL from what we can tell. So he'd have to be pretty shitty in order to not be fantasy useful. And I like taking those bets where the downside is pretty hard to see, you know, all things considered. And the market seems pretty bullish on its weapons, how Addison, Jefferson, and Hawkinson are priced. So really, it's just like they're just uncertain about McCarthy. And I think some of that is just like the lingering, is he the starter with Rodgers unsigned? So I expect him to move up over the next few months because of all that.
Is that sum it up nicely for you, Neil?
I think, yeah, Tyler did a great job of summing up all of my thoughts on JJ McCarthy. Just like there's so much safety in the system. We've seen so many quarterbacks who we previously thought were very bad come in and they're like, is this quarterback better than I thought he was? And Sam Darnold is obviously like the best. Like he was in the in the MVP conversation last year after being like, no, people being like, oh, you can't draft Sam Darnold. Like he sucks. Why would you ever take Sam Darnold in fantasy football? And then he was in the MVP conversation because the system is just so good with the Vikings. Josh Dobbs looked amazing for some of his time in Minnesota, quarterback after quarterback. Like doesn't matter how good they are. So even if he's like the 22nd best starting quarterback in the NFL, he's still probably a QB1 in terms of fantasy because the system, he's just going to look good in the Viking system. Add to it, they're playing in a dome for half of their games, their home games. Just so much looks really good for JJ McCarthy. We don't need him to be great. We just need him to be okay. And I think he might be better than that. Like the team really wanted him, so he might actually be a good quarterback. And if he is, he's just going to absolutely smash.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate software engineer with a supermodel wife and a big ass house. You don't really care because the surroundings are just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to follow that, but yeah, I mean, even just going back to the Sam Darnold point, last year, QB5 in points per game, but he was also had the fourth highest advance rate among quarterbacks. Like 24% is no joke when it comes to quarterback position. If we get anywhere close from that JJ McCarthy, it'll be a good year. Neil, we've got mine and Tyler's targets on here as well. When you saw this list, was there anybody that you just went, what? Why the hell are they into that guy? Like anybody stand out as a particularly interesting pick at target here?
All right, I'll read off. I mean, George Kittle. I feel like I thought about putting George Kittle on mine. No, I like George. He's like one of the slappiest picks on the board. Like everybody is into George Kittle this year, but that includes me. Chris Godwin, great. Justin Fields. I understand all of these picks, so yeah, none there. Calvin Ridley gets a quarterback upgrade. Ted McMillan, I love. Chase Brown looks good. Tutu Atwell is one that I like. So many sharp people are on him. He's the only one that I'm like, I'm a little bit surprised to see him on your list, Tom. But I also know like you are not the only sharp person who's been like, he was good last year, you should draft him. So I'd love to hear your sell there.
So it's not even just about Tutu. Obviously, the fact that they saw him as a priority this offseason mattered, and there was no point where it's like, okay, he's the wide receiver 2. But the wide receiver 3 is such a valuable role in the Rams offense. We've seen Demarcus Robinson be excellent and be really fantasy viable at times, not to the point where in redraft and managed leagues where you're going to feel comfortable starting him. But in best ball, which is what we're about, then that's very much a place where I'm good starting him. Maybe you could make an argument that the Rams are going to veer tight end heavy this year. But last year, when their offensive line was terrible and they still had the kind of the guys behind there that they could have leaned into if they wanted to go tight end heavy, they didn't. So I still think this is going to be a 3 wide receiver heavy offense. And I think that Tutu Atwell at cost is one of those guys that I just can't stop clicking. And a bigger point for me, so I've mentioned a bunch, is that I just think Matthew Stafford is due positive touchdown regression. Last year, he had 10 games where he failed to throw for more than one touchdown in total. Puka Nacua has 9 receiving touchdowns in 2 seasons in the NFL, which isn't particularly great. Most of the elite guys are getting that and then some in a year. Devontae Adams, I think, has been brought in to help with that. And I think that they're going to move slightly away from Kyren Williams around the goal line and move to being a more creative team in the red zone, hopefully. And I'm hoping that Tutu Atwell benefits from that because we know how much touchdowns matter over here. Tyler, anyone you want to touch on before we move over to the fades list?
Yeah, I think the one that people will probably go like, oh, God, that's not fun is Ramondre Stevenson. But at the end of the day, you know, we know that this offense is still projected for pretty low scoring. I have no visions of grandeur, unlike some of our slappy brothers and sisters across the way, about, you know, the true heights that Drake May can take this offense to, because at the end of the day, we've seen Vrabel want to lead a very methodical, balanced, efficient offense, and at times that's not super high scoring. It's not super fantasy viable outside of one or two guys. And with all that said, I like Travion Henderson as much as the next guy. He's very explosive. He's very fun. I do think he'll get plenty of targets. I don't know how much Ramondre goes away, and I don't know what Travion's true upside is if this is a split backfield, you know, anything more than 75-25. And so at that point, it kind of becomes just like the age-old take the cheapest New England Patriots back and profit, because Ramondre is going to have pretty high contingent value if Travion misses any time, or if this is anything close to a 50-50 split just because of goal line role. I'm not the biggest Ramondre stan. I'm not his biggest fan. I know he's got fumbling problems. I know that those were called out first and foremost, but I also know this offense has, I think they're projected for the second easiest schedule this year, which could mean a lot of not trying that hard games, which could mean a lot of run focus, which, you know, how much do they want to give to the rookie to grind it out? I don't know. And if it's a soft matchup. So all that said, he's an extremely fine, if not unfun target in the range he's going. And he's probably a little undervalued because Travion wasn't a first round pick. And the team seemingly is not treating him like a first round pick so far. And this team also limited Derrick, the coaching staff limited Derrick Henry of all people, and, you know, allowed some split. So I don't want to get out over my skis, and I will, you know, clench my nose and do the thing, because Ramondre is essentially the Najee Harris bet 2 rounds cheaper, sometimes 3.
So Neil, like, how heavily exposed are you willing to go on Ramondre Stevenson with him being one of your targets?
I mean, if I need him, I'm willing to reach around from where he's going. Like, he's somebody who's actually become more of a target for me recently, just as I've thought about it more. Just, you know, Travion Henderson doesn't really have the profile of a workhorse. Like, he's probably not going to be the guy taking. I would be shocked if he's 75% of the role. So I think it's going to be closer to 50-50, and just, where Ramondre is going in drafts. Like, I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's like some amazing running back, but I think the offense probably takes a step forward this year. He's going pretty late, and he might be splitting carries. He might even still be like the, you know, first and second down back this year, at least at the beginning part of the year. So I think he's got like pretty strong floor, and still I think some upside there where he's going in drafts. So I'm probably not taking him ahead of like before like pick 120, but right now you don't need to, and sometimes he falls into the 140s. I'll gladly take him at ADP and even a bit ahead of ADP if I need a running back.
Love that. Well, we're 24 minutes in, so let's get over the fades for a little bit, and we'll jump into a BBM draft in 5 minutes. So, Neil, your fades: Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Jameson Williams. Tyler, Marvin Harrison Jr., Isaiah Pacheco, Tyreek Hill, Javonte Williams, Jaden Reed. Mine: James Cook, Travis Kelce, Quentin Johnston, DeAndre Swift, and Jameson Williams. Tyler, did anyone on Neil's list upset you?
No, I tried to pick guys I didn't think we'd overlap with, but yeah, I mean, I know the fantasy points guys are seeing what I'm seeing as far as the slow matriculation down year over year. It's not just last year. There's been a steady decline, and when you hit a cliff that big for a speed guy, you don't want to ignore it. I try to make this a price focused thing and less of a player take thing, all things considered. And so from that standpoint, Joe Burrow, draft ball, bro. And yeah, I mean, like picking Derrick Henry is like if I looked at my exposures, I am fading Derrick Henry. Am I ready to be absolutely wrong about that again? Yes. And the one thing keeping me up at night is that Green Bay can't stop a runny nose when it comes to a dual threat rushing offense. And guess who he plays week 17? So I could end up being right on the year and wrong in the final, or vice versa. Derrick Henry's probably the one guy where it's like fading a second round running back doesn't feel good, because I mean, at the end of the day, I want plenty of all those guys just because of the ceilings and the floors that they've given us. And I'm maybe most surprised about your DeAndre Swift take, because after recent news, it's becoming more and more quote unquote safe, but that'll make the bet even more volatile. Of at cost, it's hard to not like him, but we all know that the real downside is Ben Johnson just decides, I don't need to run this offense through you. And we have questions about how good the offense can be.
Yeah, well, and I'm just going to go back to the chat, like Chris saying, shouldn't this be terrifying? Like, all these guys are on the highest projected points teams. Well, yeah, DeAndre Swift is like the least of my concerns, because I think that there's so many paths to Chicago being bad and him being bad, whereas guys like James Cook, who I'm fading, 17 touchdowns last year, led all running backs, led all players in scrimmage touchdowns, and he legitimately was a great value, but he ranked 24th in total running back scrimmage yards. So I think there's positive, there's potential for massive touchdown regression there. But Neil, to the point of Mazzone, like, do you weigh in like how many points offenses have scored? Obviously, you've got a great DFS background. You've been incredibly successful over there, which is built around things like points totals and stuff. Does that weigh into your best ball thinking when thinking about these guys?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. But generally, it's like with wide receivers, I care less. Like, I think teams that are like the team as a whole is going to be worse. They're going to be forced to throw more. Running backs, it's like it's a bigger ding to running backs to be on bad teams for me. Other than, of course, like pass catching running backs, so you can get late. Sometimes it's kind of a positive to be on a bad team. But yeah, in general, yes, I want to bet on teams that are going to be scoring a lot of points, especially in half PPR. Like you need those touchdowns, so you need teams that are going to score a lot of touchdowns. It's definitely a factor, but I'm generally like Derrick Henry. I'm kind of making he kind of stands for a lot of those like kind of aging running backs who like we expected to take a step back last year potentially, and none of them did. I'm kind of making that like general bet again this year. So yes, concern, but also these guys are being drafted very, very highly. There are other picks that I'd rather take bets on.
Is that kind of the same mindset for Jared Goff? Obviously, last year he was better than expected, played in the Dome throughout. This year he's not playing in the Dome quite as much, but he's still in the Dome for the playoffs, right? So is it just, and you combine that with the Jameson Williams fade, like, I find JMO a hard click, but I'm really into Sam Laporta. I'm really into Amon-Ra St. Brown at their cost. I think they're fine. Is it just lower on the lines in general, or are you just lower on that level of the pass catching element from JMO and Goff?
So Goff particularly, it's just because he doesn't run like at all. Like he's a total statue quarterback. So then you're really reliant on touchdowns, and he was among the league leaders in touchdown rate, like 6.9% touchdown rate last year. JJ Zacharyson actually did a newsletter about this and made some really good points there. But it's just like there's probably going to be like there's a lot of volatility in touchdown rate from year to year. Now they lose Ben Johnson, so I think that just the offense as a whole could lose some touchdowns this year. And it's also just a matter of how strong the quarterbacks are behind Jared Goff. Like he's being drafted, 108 or so overall. And I just like so many of the quarterbacks behind him have a bit more of that rushing floor and maybe add some more of the passing touchdowns as well. So I think maybe a little bit of regression for that offense overall. And then some other offenses I think will emerge. So it's just kind of a tough click for me where he's going. I think he's also kind of, he rarely falls much beyond his ADP because he's so all of his pass catchers go before he does. So then it's just somebody's going to take him.
Yeah, it's just kind of quite tricky because he's in that range with like Brock Purdy, and he's just a bit after Caleb Williams. He's just before Dak Prescott. He's just before Drake May. And obviously with Caleb and Drake May, you've got a potential element of rushing floor. Dak Prescott, you've got the fact that he's got the upgrades. Brock Purdy, we believe in the offensive scheme. And with Jared Goff, it's like we believe in the weapons. We believe in him to an extent. And we believe in the Lions to an extent. But there's just something about Jared Goff that there's always that worry that he's going to completely capitulate and turn into a shell of himself again. Like, Tyler, have you got any kind of pushback on the Jared Goff take?
No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's more of a price discussion right now, right? Like most of our fades, at least, and I think most smart fades are price sensitive. There's very, I espoused this on a stream a few weeks ago. I think there's very few reasons and very few guys you should have like 0% stance on because of like a player take. If you're a portfolio volume drafter, if you're unless you're just super cool with your risk being super high. And that said, for all the points mentioned, yeah, touchdowns are very noisy. It's kind of a volatile situation with one of maybe the top 5 OCs over the last 5 years leaving town. I have some comfiness with an internal hire. Being able to kind of bring along some of the same schematic things. Frank Ragnow leaving, not the best thing, but it seems like they've been ahead of the curve with trying to add depth. I think the things that make me feel good about Goff and this offense are that just Campbell and Goff seem to have kind of turned a corner in the last year about being aggressive no matter what. And that's going to help just from a volume standpoint, opportunity standpoint. And also as a Goff hater, the way he kind of handled pressure, not that he always performed well under it, but the way he started handling pressure this last year, much more confident, much more aggressive, trying like slipping a tackle and actually making a run or trying to buy time to complete a pass instead of doing a Derrick Carr shell up and die type of thing. Those are reasons where I'm like, those are the only nitpick pushbacks I can have. But I agree that from a price standpoint, he started out kind of like with Baker, like priced at his ceiling of what we saw last year. And we know one of the easiest things to do year over year is kind of fade the, and Neil mentioned JJ Zachariason did this research recently with a ton of regression, but especially with quarterbacks, fade the guys being priced too high for having one nice spike year or recency of spike. Go after the guys going way too low because of variance and balance that out. And the market seemingly has agreed because Goff's price has dropped about 15 picks of ADP in the last month and a half. And ideally he should get priced out for the guys like Dak, for the guys like Drake May. And then at that point, feel free to take shots on him. How much different is he than Michael Penix, than Trevor Lawrence, than JJ McCarthy? He should be, all those guys should be kind of, tightly packed around the 130s, the 120s. And then have at it. So yeah, what the market priced initially was kind of a little too overconfident on this organization. And we know that like Goff does need everything to be there in order to be a spike guy. And from that standpoint, no, I can't push back on any of that.
Neil, we're going to jump into a BBM draft very quickly soon, but like anyone out of mine or Tyler's list, which kind of stood out to you as one which you wouldn't be willing to do?
No, I think I'm with all of them.
Yeah. Well, that definitely makes me feel better. So Neil, like we've talked about kind of like the targets of fades, but in terms of best ball overall this year, how much have you shifted strategy from last year when it was such a 0 RB heavy year? Like I recently put out some numbers that showed 20% of people drafting in BBM went 0 RB last year with no running back before round 6. That was twice as much as the previous year, and it had grown since like 2021 when it was at 4%. It had grown massive in popularity. I don't know how much of like your portfolio it was last year. I know we did some streams together and it felt like you took quite a mixed approach to things, but have you shifted dramatically one way or the other based on anything from last year?
I'm still very mixed. Like I don't go into a draft with like, typically I don't, with like, this is the strategy that I'm going to do. I just did a content where I intentionally went 0 RB in some DraftKings drafts. But that's not usually how I approach things. I usually kind of let the draft dictate where I go. With that said, I am going to end up with a big 0 RB portfolio again this year, and probably even more hero RB this year. I still think, all of the reasons we did 0 RB last year still hold true. I still think like making a big bet against all of the running backs who have just had major volume over the past few years and they're aging. I think it's an even better bet this year than it was last year. And the thing is, like, if you're betting against several of these, like the Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, the highly drafted veteran running back profile, you don't need all of them to fail. You just need a little bit more than last year, because then you also get you're betting on some of those RB2s, the real life NFL RB2s emerging and becoming players that are massively helpful for your team later on. We didn't have as many of those emerge last year as we usually do. We did have some, but I think if we just get a little bit better luck with some of these like early drafted vets maybe not staying healthy the entire year, it's just going to look that much better this year. And then the other big part of the reason that 0 RB didn't work as well last year, it was a lot of the smash wide receiver picks got hurt. Like, and like people talk about, like, we've talked a lot about how like wide receiver picks got hurt more than usual last year, but it wasn't just that. It was the best picks, like the best like value picks, all got hurt. Rashee Rice was smashing, then he gets hurt. Chris Godwin was smashing, then he gets hurt. Rashid Shaheed was smashing ADP, he gets hurt. I'm sure there are 5 more examples. There are just so many of like the best wide receiver picks where it's like, okay, we got this one right, then they got hurt. So it's just I think we had a kind of a fluky year last year. I'm willing to go back to it.
Yeah, and just like to your point, like over the last 3 years, running backs in the top 36 picks have played more games than wide receivers on average across that range. And that is not something that we've seen historically. It feels like when we get the overcorrection the other way, it is going to make a big difference. But people are definitely leaning more running back heavy. Like, this is the most running back heavy round one since 2022. There's more wide receivers. There's less wide receivers by about 4 being drafted inside the top 50. It's definitely making a bit of a difference, but I think that for all the reasons you say, there's still plenty of reason to be drafting 0 RB. We are about to get underway in Best Ball Mania draft now, and we are picking from the 12 slot. Neil, any kind of particular combos that you find yourself clicking a lot on the turn, or are you at the point in drafting season where it's time to start getting different and pulling players up to get those unique combos?
No, I kind of think I love the wide receivers who come to us at the 1-2 turn. Like I really love drafting at the end. Like, this is maybe my favorite draft spot right now. Occasionally I'll bring up Brock Bowers to the 1-2 turn. But I think generally just like taking 2 of those wide receivers who fall that are kind of have that first round ADP. Love it.
Yeah. Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, I love the 12 slot because we get to control the back of the board. And right now the back of the board feels like a bunch of scared bitches drafting, and they don't want to make tough decisions, and they make my life really easy with like, oh, let me just gobble up all this delightful value. And I'm most comfortable operating from this. We're all shocked, the back end of the board. And for now, it feels like the perfect spot to let the draft let you be unique. It's a poor time for a contest. Is going to be open until right up until the start of the season, maybe 2 weeks into September, maybe less. To get unique, the guys you think might be unique might become chalk combos. So take what you take now. ADP is not as sharp as it can be. It's certainly not completely misguided. So from that standpoint, and we're gonna have a tough time because a lot of the chat rats and Twitter followers are in this room. So we'll blow this back in wide open and keep tangoing with the folks.
Yeah, so first round, pretty normal so far. Ashton Gentry has, like, I've seen him fall on a couple of different platforms over the last couple of weeks. It just seems like the whole rookie running back things, they are starting to drop. Neil, we're on the clock. Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas, Derrick Henry, Drake London. Obviously, it's not going to be Derrick Henry for you, but far away.
Obviously. Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas is great to me. Otherwise, Brock Bowers I would consider. But yeah, I like just taking those first 2, even though they both have the week 8 bye, which hurts me, but I'll allow it.
Tyler, good with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, and this is what I mean. So like we find out Amon-Ra had a knee scope. It was non-major. It was minor, and he's expected to be ready for camp. He's now, and because people were already like, well, J-Mo's that guy, that boy, nice. Ben Johnson's not here anymore. what if we doubt who Amon-Ra is for the 5th year in a row and fade his ass? Please sign me up. Give it all to me. Because guess what? If this offense does take a step back, Goff becomes who he is. His thesis is panic, throw to the slot guy, and pray to God. And his God is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then from the 12 spot, Brian Thomas. Oh, Travis Hunter. We both don't like him as a pick because how much corner does he play? And he's kind of a raw, overrated receiver, picked at 2. And then we're also saying, how many targets is Brian Thomas? He ran hot with Mac Jones and nobody else was healthy, as if there are all these weapons here right now outside of Travis Hunter, the rookie. And we're going to ignore that Liam Cohen is coming over from feeding McMillan, Evans, and Godwin in Tampa Bay. I laugh in the face of uncertainty and I say, please give me these grown-ass men that get the job done and score touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's such a really good point with Amon-Ra, because even at points where the volume's dropped off and he's not quite seeing the same, he scored more touchdowns in every season in the NFL to the point of last year. I think it was 12 touchdowns last year, 10 the previous. And he's become so well-rounded, but people kind of still see him as a slot merchant and don't want to click him. But I'm very much in on Amon-Ra. Like I've already talked about, I'm very much in on Sam Laporta. I'm in on Jahmyr Gibbs. And by way of that, it just means that I just end up being lower on JMO, which I definitely don't enjoy because JMO is so much fun. How worried are you about JMO, Neil?
Oh, I'm worried. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie and tell you that I have no concerns there. He might just continue to get better every year. He did have 1,000 yards last year. His yards per route run were pretty good, 2.28. So yeah, JMO could take another step forward. I just where he's going in drafts. I like if he came to us at pick 60, then I'd be it. I'd be willing to take him there. It's just where he's going is just a little bit too early where they're just I prefer George Pickens, and George Pickens goes later in drafts. I prefer George Kittle. You can sometimes take George Kittle there instead. So just in his range, it's not that I hate Jameson Williams and I don't see the upside. It's just there are other players that I prefer in his range.
Yeah. To the JMO point, one of the stickiest things we can kind of look at year over year for how well receivers are going to do is target share. And he was below 20% target share last year. Amon-Ra dominates target share year after year after year. I have a little bit of concern about how JMO is going to be used without Ben Johnson, because Ben Johnson basically got JMO on a bunch of free crossers and jet sweeps and things of that. So really good, unique usage to kind of use him a little Debo Light-esque to utilize this speed. His coach speak is solid. Obviously, the offense has more at its potential tapping into JMO. But as far as how this offense works and how it, thrives is guys that are getting open, catching the ball, making the thing work, and contingent value. Amon-Ra has the ability to just become an elite target dominator if any of Laporta, Gibbs, or JMO miss time, which could happen at any point in the season. And as well as JMO was able to kind of be a big red zone threat guy with his size once to my memory. I watched him really dominate with a toe touch back of the end zone, big boy touchdown catch. And outside of that, they really unlocked Amon-Ra doing that last year. And Amon-Ra and Gibbs kind of both using these Texas quick hitch routes in the red zone to get open and do the thing. So yeah, it's just I don't have to squint to see how Amon-Ra smashes his ADP again, because at the back of the first round, you're giving me a discount on all these concerns. If he was going top 6, different discussion. But at this point, as far as a tier, it's easy to see how he finishes with a top 5 ADP again.
Okay, so back on the clock, double wide receiver start, and then this is the kind of the lull, the question mark zone on the wide receivers: Xavier Worthy, Ted McMillan, DJ Moore. I really like Ted here. Neil, you mentioned you liked him a lot. Would you take him ahead of the elite quarterbacks?
I would, yeah, absolutely. I'd take Ted first of this group. I don't hate taking Xavier Worthy. I've been a Rashee Rice guy, but where he's going, I'm okay with taking Xavier Worthy as well. Travis Hunter, if we want to do a double stack there, I don't hate that. So yeah, Tet the clear one, and then what do you guys think for the second? I don't do a ton of elite quarterback just because I really like building out the 3 quarterbacks in that wide pick 90 to 160. What do you guys think with this 20 seconds left?
Go on, Tyler. I'm good with Travis Hunter or Xavier Worthy, but Travis Hunter sounds fun.
Well, then have fun. We shall do. Yeah, I don't mind taking the elite quarterback, but it might become the most chalk pairing accidentally of the elite pairing with the 1-2 turn guys. I don't want to box myself out of having 3 nice stacks in order to kind of combat. This is the cheapest the elite quarterbacks have been in some time, especially on this site. That said, they're not really moving anywhere. So I think an easy way to get unique is to kind of just say, I don't need this pocket of the elite guys because there's some really nice profiles. Fields, we've mentioned, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff following in price, Dak Prescott. These guys are going to allow us to have spike week potential. And, one of the easiest, and I know it's funny, we've been kind of talking about the power of 3 stacked quarterbacks with bringbacks in the playoffs that, that BBM allows. And then Hayden Winks goes last week and says, hey guys, all the range, 3 quarterbacks. This is, what are you doing not building like this? I don't know how chalk it'll be come mid-season, but I mean, if the data says what the data says, and if these guys have huge ceilings, they have huge dog levels, and their quarterbacks all potentially stand to be huge values at their lasting prices. And at that point, I'm in.
I think part of it as well is it's just so much harder to separate for the quarterbacks. Like you look at Lamar and Josh Allen, who last year were head and shoulders above the rest. And when it came down to things, you had Lamar advanced at a rate of 30%. Josh Allen advanced at a rate of 18.7%. But you go down to guys like Baker Mayfield, 27%, Sam Darnold, 24%. And obviously there's a lot that goes into advance rates, not just as simple as fantasy points or bits like that. But I think it's so much more difficult for the elite quarterbacks to separate in a meaningful way. And if you're not getting them separated in a meaningful way from advance rate, it needs to be from fantasy points scored in a single week. And while Lamar and Josh Allen definitely have much more avenues to those 30-point games, if you're playing the 3 quarterback game and you're playing the double stacks, which we've seen pay off plenty of times if you're doing that, then you can get that path to 30 points. It's not going to happen as consistently through the season as people might like to believe. But yeah, I've typically been an elite quarterback guy because I'm quite Ravens biased, and I always want a healthy amount of Lamar. But you go back and look, BBM winner had Joe Burrow when it counted, and that was what made a difference. And he got Joe Burrow at a lower rate in ownership compared to Lamar as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, I'm agreeing with your point. I'm just like, and I don't hate the elite quarterback. Like I can see the appeal there, especially with like Josh Allen. You can get all of his stacking partners later this year, which is kind of nice. You don't have to reach for any of your stacking partners. Lamar has, Mark Andrews goes a bit later now. You can get Zay Flowers a little bit later. So I do see the appeal. It's just we have so many great quarterbacks. I feel like in that, pick 100 on. There's just I love smashing 3 quarter. Sometimes I just do 2 quarterbacks in that range too, like from pick 190 to 150. Sometimes I'll risk it with just 2, but in general, I just really like that range.
I also think you got to play your room, and we know that guys that draft in stream drafts can tend to be pretty Pitts heavy, and we kind of see that with a lot of favorites gone, especially some of our favorite targets. So I think pretty prudent to just go ahead and get 4 elite ceiling guys who can just dominate targets and have huge ceilings and play the room.
So playing the room. Should we take Joe Burrow just to piss off the team of 1 turn with the double stack?
Obviously, we have to protect the integrity of BBM.
Yeah. Okay, so Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, Jordan Addison, Rome Odunze, and then Chris Olave, James Conner. Neil, any strong lean here?
I do like Chuba. I think he's a good bet again this year, and we already have Ted McMillan, so we're already betting on that Carolina offense. So he's the one that to me is like the first pick here.
I'm good with
I
that.
like Jordan Addison. Gives us the JJ McCarthy out. I don't dislike Rome Odunze. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more there. Chris Olave, if you want to take a really late shot on Tyler Shuck. But yeah, it'd probably be Addison, Rome, my top 2. What do you guys think?
I'd lean Addison or Rome Odunze. Tyler, break the tie, and
let's get the young boy that scores touchdowns.
We correlated with Monra.
Yeah,
there you go.
we had quite a lengthy decision at the minute in our Discord. We're slow drafting a BBM team with members. If you are a YouTube member and not already in the Discord, jump in the Discord, just go to your YouTube perks tab and you'll find the link, or drop me a DM or Tyler and we will make sure you get in there. Look, we're going to win money, so you want to be part of that. But we had a lengthy discussion about Chris Olave. I kind of struggle with him because it just feels like there's so much pushing against him. Do you feel like round 6 is too much of a fade for him this year? They should be going higher?
No, I think round 6 is about right. Like he actually, I had trouble with him for a while until enough people, enough.
That's
people
where I'm kind of getting
make
to
the point of like
Peer pressure,
really like Chris Olave, and I'm like,
pressure.
I mean, at some point you just have to you have to be a little bit humble in your approach. And it's like, all right. So to me, he seemed like it's tough to really make this bet when Tyler Shuck is the quarterback. But then there are other people who are like, Tyler Shuck is not as bad as people think he is. I have no real opinion on Tyler Shuck, so I'm willing to say I might just be wrong that like maybe he is worth this 5-6 turn. So yeah, I mix him in. I do prefer Jordan Addison. Romo Dunze, a guy I haven't really drafted much of either. I saw, Scott Barrett made a post about how you have to kind of throw out, I don't even remember why, but you have to throw out all of Romo Dunze's rates from last year. I think just the offense is so bad.
It was Caleb's inaccuracy being next level bad.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how much of that you can throw away considering, the OC has changed, the line has changed, the quarterback has not changed.
Yeah. No, I love that point, Neil. Like being humble and understanding that you don't know everything and stuff. It's definitely led me to some players who I might not have wanted to click in previous years, and Chris Olave is one that, as we went back and forth in the Discord, my argument started with I just find Shaheed at cost so much of an easier price. Obviously, though, Shaheed last year was wide receiver 6 in points per game over the first few weeks of the season and had a 30% target share. It's fair to kind of put, and people in the Discord rightly push back and said, well, it's not Derrick Carr, it's Tyler Shuck. And Chris Olave has earned targets at a great rate throughout his career. So maybe it all kind of comes together, and maybe even if it doesn't, when you're talking about a round 6 value, that kind of makes some sense to me. With the team where we're at, how many more wide receivers do you think that we're going to end up with altogether, Tyler?
Well, considering that we started out triple tapping and we're at a 150 build, I am going to push for just 6 to really leverage the power of us attributing so much early capital to wide receiver, and I'm not going to be afraid. I'd like us to draft like we're right. We nailed the guys. We nailed their seasons. We nailed these high drafted rookies coming into very target, fresh, ready to be dominated roles, and allow us to fill up, especially if we want 3 quarterbacks. Well, we're pushing tight end. It's prudent to get 3 of those. We only have 1 anchor running back that is a fine target, not my favorite target. So yeah, 3-6-6-3 build calls to me, and so I think that's where I'm going to lean, so that we don't lose the forest for the trees and just say that these are the guys we need.
Makes sense. My guy Sam Laporte goes off the board just before us. We're about to come back on the clock. Caleb Johnson, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, Patrick Mahomes, Darnell Mooney, another of the Discord's favorite wide receivers. Neil, any kind of strong leans? Do you feel like we need to be picking a running back here, or do you like TJ Hawkinson to keep building out that JJ McCarthy correlation that we could add into?
We could take the value on Caleb Johnson. I would have no issue with that. I think those first 3 on the board there are my favorites. Caleb Johnson, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson kind of fill needs for us.
Yeah. Tyler?
I don't love Caleb, so I don't mind taking him when he slips about 10 picks past ADP.
Right.
If we're going to have 6 guys, I don't mind having a rookie that can do both. This is I don't have a strong lean. Maybe my strongest lean is going Hawk to get 2 Minnesota pass catchers and set us up for a double McCarthy.
No, I really like that. That's where I was leaning on this one. I think that Hawkinson's somebody I probably don't click enough because I'm clicking a lot of Sam Laporta at the minute, and some of that probably should come back across to Hawkinson. I do like Darnell Mooney, but I just find myself clicking him a lot of times, so quite all right with that. But in terms of overall draft strategy, Neil, and definitely Tyler, keen to hear your thoughts on this as well. Like, we've seen not just Zero RB became so much more popular, but like Hero RB has gone from like being 85% of drafts in 2021 down to like 50% this year. Do you think, though, there's an argument that not enough people are paying the dual running back starts enough attention at the minute? Do you find yourself trying these dual running back starts and coming away with teams that you feel comfortable with at any point? Or is it still just a case of you feel you need one wide receiver and one running back, like the winner of last year's BBM, who were Jamar Chase and Jonathan Taylor? What is it too uncomfortable for you?
Yes, I think. I mean, like I don't do a ton of starting with dual, like first 2 rounds running backs. I'm not totally opposed to it. Like if value falls to me in the second round and I get kind of a unique combo there, sure. But in general, like I feel like the wide receivers in the first 2 rounds are so much stronger. Like they just get so much weaker later in drafts that I really want a wide receiver in most drafts somewhere in the first 2 rounds. And I think a lot of the field is still doing dual running back start. So I don't think you're like getting unique by doing it. So I would typically rather get a wide receiver. Occasionally I've done like the Gene T and Bowers thing, which is probably going to be kind of chalky because it's so easy to do right now. But usually I want to have at least one wide receiver through the first 2 rounds, I think.
Yeah. Tyler, where you at on that?
I have found the thing I feel most good about, kind of same thing with Neil. Unless I get kind of a decently unique pairing of 2 early running backs in the first 2 rounds, I prefer to play it as a dual running back start through the first 4 to 5 rounds. So round 2, 3, very easy to make. I like this running back more than this receiver more. I can't have, or I shouldn't, I can't. It's not prudent of me to have 50% Devonta Adams. So if I'm not going to do that and I have like 4 third-round receiver fades, running back seems like a fine spot to take them. And I think rounds 4 and 5 present pretty nice pockets where you can make an argument that, hey, this running back in my build. So yeah, I think if I'm doing 2 early running backs, it's most often with round 2 and 3, 2 and 4, 3 and 5, something like that. I don't mind being balanced for the first 10 rounds, but I do want to make sure that I'm targeting the right types of archetypes and ceilings when I do select these guys. I have a lot of Kamara as an anchor running back in the 6th round. It's like, hey, if I'm this strong at receiver early on, I'm very fine accepting the projectable volume of Kamara, who is getting a Kellen Moore improvement, potentially a more healthy line. If the quarterbacks are bad, we know that Kamara is just a target earning running back. He could easily span his way into like a viable ceiling. And what if that also, doesn't tail off at the end of the year for multiple reasons? Stuff like that. I think being flexible is the best lesson you can learn year over year. What's going to win is going to change. Guys who stay healthy are going to change. Guys who smash are going to change. But playing the room and being flexible with your builds allows you to also have different types of teams, and I think that's good.
Yeah, and being able to take these, legacy strategies that we've talked about for so many years and bend them to current ADP, being able to do like a late hero running back in round 3, round 4, whereas traditionally you'd be talking about first 2 rounds. I think there's so much opportunity and stuff like that still. It's something which, you could look at guys like Breece Hall this year. You could look at James Cook, and if you think that they're valuable enough, then you can definitely do it. This is fine in the chat saying I would discuss the number of 3 RB starts in Superflex. Neil, you've been playing much Superflex?
I have not played a ton. I just entered a few slow drafts last night, but I don't mind it in Superflex as much, where you can get like just disgusting running back combos in Superflex, and also like you only start 2 wide receivers, so you even it out that way, running back versus wide receiver. So I think running backs are just more valuable in the Superflex format on Underdog. So yeah, no issue with that, but I haven't done a ton of it so far.
Okay, so back on the clock. Jordan Mason has 1 pick ahead.
You're killing me, Cactus.
Where we going, Tyler?
This is a pretty choose your own adventure here. I say we push Goff given all that talk. So who do we want to pull up here at the turn?
Scadabo's gone. So yeah, I don't mind just taking Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Agree that it is largely choose your own adventure. Let's see the bye weeks on the running backs. Can we break any ties there?
So we've got 14, 5, and 14. So we could definitely do with another non-14. I mean, I'd be okay with Najee. I'm fine. It seems like he's fallen a bit. Tyler, any lean?
I think I prefer Sharp personally.
Okay.
If I can tell y'all on that, I think just it's a little bit more ambiguous. Quite honestly, my thing is
game stack too.
Yeah, exactly.
Carolina.
It's a little bit of a game stack with the double Carolina. We've seen Charbonnet be like in the battle royale streets, a first round pick given his volume and his efficiency. I think this Clint Kubiak offense suits both guys, and they've both gotten decent talk. We know that Walker has just struggled to stay healthy. Given his profile. So like it's just Charbonnet's locked in to like a decent standalone role of 4 to 12 touches a game, depending on how the game script goes, and walking into all of the work, one of the best workloads in the league. So getting that as your fourth running back in this range of like kind of gross stuff feels nice. And it's easy to say that the bear case for Najee is that Hampton is a first round running back. Typically, you don't draft that running back's league mate. JJ Zacharyson will do plenty of like redraft type of analysis that says like avoid the guys with first round, rookies coming into that backfield because, history tells us they have every incentive to get all of the work. Now the one caveat, it's a Greg Roman offense. We know that the running backs are likely to split time, but towards the end of the season, we should all expect Hampton to start consolidating a lot of that work. And I don't know how much Najee is going to claw away, even if it's an annoying 50-50 split. I don't know if I want 50% of that split with Najee's efficiency versus that the upside, the upside is like Najee's the Gus Edwards 2 touchdown in week 15. Oh, nice. He rumbled his way to 2 touchdowns. Cool. Well, Charbonnet's upside is he's got the backfield to himself for 4 to 6 weeks. And just based on volume, that's going to potentially have 25, 30-point games in his ceiling. So to me, that's the tiebreaker of if the market does what it should, which is kind of allow Najee to drop a little bit, just because projections are going to say, it's hard to see the much better talented player seeding a lot of work, especially where we care about late season where all the money is. And Charbonnet is one injury away from all the work, and their talent seems way more ambiguous, and easily they can say, hey, Charbonnet is just doing more with this work. Maybe he gets more of it by the end of the season, even without an injury. So it's like those things allow me to just close my eyes and say, I like Charbonnet. The Najee stink is fine. I'll take him when he falls. If it's like Najee versus Javonte, I'll easily click Najee. Because I just think like Najee's more talented than Javonte. And the contention of Najee is Hampton gets injured. So from that standpoint, fine. But yeah, I don't love taking the guy who has a first round superstar, like his model as far as the athleticism, the size, and the production in college. That's not a profile I want to draft the backfield mate on without any sort of inkling that, it's going to go Najee's way all the season.
Yeah. You make plenty of good points. Nick is a steal. We've had a lot of Nick Westbrook-Akine comments on the channel lately. It's certainly
old guy scored touchdown. What could go wrong?
Yeah. Look, are we starting to get boxed out of the quarterback position? Is that somewhere where we're going to have to put a bit of attention? You can see the left-hand side of the board is very purple heavy at the minute, and over on the right, if this creates a little bit of a panic, you guys worried at all that we might have fewer options than we would like, or are you still confident in what we've got?
No, we'll be all right.
I mean, we need to start drafting quarterbacks at some point for sure, but yeah, well, I'm not panicked yet. I want to point out D. Tom loving the he's just taken all of my fades, which I mean it feels like a cheat code after last year. He's got Goff, he's got Jamo, he's got Derrick Henry, but they're mostly good values too.
There's definitely a few analysts out there that, yeah, I would be quite happy to take their fades.
Name names, Tom. Don't be a coward. Double tapping QB here. Is that good with everybody?
Yeah, just makes too much sense. Yeah, no, I'm not going to name names, but yeah. Don't we all just know
Schmamish
Waddle
Mac.
and or Hill will miss a lot of time this year? It's already looking bad. NWI is definitely going to be a steal. Definitely on DK style format. I don't do UD. Yeah, I can understand that. In 20 round format, it probably makes a little bit more sense. And hey, I mean, it was Evan Silver said a few weeks ago when in his rankings, his first top 150, which is more geared to redraft, but he had the gap between Waddle and Hill just negligible. And he was saying, well, at this point, are we sure that Tyreek Hill is even better than Jalen Waddle? A year ago, so many people, sharp people, were in on Jalen Waddle, and it just didn't work out. So I think that there's definitely a fun argument to be had for Waddle over Hill. And if you really go to the extreme ends of that argument, then NWI makes some sense. But I'm not quite there in 18 round drafts. Neil, who's the most revolting player that you keep drafting at the end of these 18 round drafts?
Ooh, who is the most? I
who's
mean,
your
Nick
skid
Chubb.
mark
Like I said,
MD?
I've taken a couple shares of Nick Chubb recently in the 18th round. I take a lot of like rookie running backs, DJ Giddens, Jarquez Hunter, which I don't think are revolting, but like they could end up being revolting. Like it might look really foolish by the end of the year. Like you took the running back 3 on the Rams who just love Kyron Williams, might look absolutely foolish at some point. But right now, taking a lot of those guys.
How about you, Tyler?
Oh, revolting. I have no problem taking literally disgusting players. Lest we forget, I had 43% Kareem Hunt in the big board last year, which was about 220 drafts. I think this year, I mean, the gross stuff is like Alexander Madison for, what if he gets the big RB Mostert role and Wright is the, I am looking at Miles Sanders and I'm saying mentally, if I don't like Jaden Blue's profile and price, if I don't like Javante's price and profile, you have to just take the other guy that could succeed there. And it's annoying to say that is Miles Sanders, who did score 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards in week 18 last year. It's gross shit like that. And honestly, it's probably just more veterans. I'm taking a few more disgusting veterans at positions late because I don't, I will make smart young player upside bets when I get information that they have a path. And right now, I think the lesson learned is like, if these guys are going to be cheap and they're going to rise to 16, 15 round because of certainty, well, then that's a different bet. But in the 18th, it's like, if I can get a guy with a role that can score points now, and that's Karane's lesson, and that's had more hits than misses, but I'm going to shy away from the Robert Woods types of like, round 18 volume. And I think that's how Tutu's a little bit different, right? That's a young player who has some strong coach speak about being utilized by being versatile in this offense, and his spikes are touchdowns. It's not just volume. So it's like and Nick Westbrook-Akine is kind of in the middle of that, right? Like a gross veteran who doesn't have a clear path, but he does score touchdowns very well. All that said, he might be suspended. I don't know how much of camp he's going to do. And a 34-year-old with speed, that might have been your one and done. Like, so it's that type of like smart gross, not just gross for gross sake, and not shying away from rookies just for that sake.
Yeah, and just like I'll give you mine, and mine, it's not a massive exposure, but I'm at 5% on Marquez Valdes-Scantling, like Seahawks receiver. We saw him blow up in points last year, and it's just like I'm just willing to go to a reasonable level on players where we know what we're getting. Like, I'm not drafting him on certain wide receiver rooms, but if I've got a room which needs just a little bit of upside, I'm willing to mix him in. Darwin's 89 saying, I'm loving tight end 1 plus Strange or plus rookie second year tight end. Feels like I get upside, breakout, and rookie shot all in one build. Yeah, I mean, like, look, one of the few strategies that's consistently worked on Underdog has been punt tight end. There's been late round tight ends that have gone off and done well on that platform every single year. So taking shots there makes too much sense. We're about to come back on the clock. Obviously, double tapped quarterback on the last turn. Lawrence on the week 8 bye, JJ on the week 6 bye. So thankfully, we didn't cook ourselves too much there. But Neil, anybody standing out at the top of the draft? This is kind of that running back, tight end, quarterback tier. The wide receivers are a little bit more murky here, but we do need probably another 2 running backs to fit Tyler's 6 build. Anyone out? Are you making a case for Kyle Pitts here, Neil?
I am not. I do see some names that I like. towards the top, and I'll wait a second and then throw out some names that I like, and then we can consider them. Although Cactus just read my mind last time and sniped us on Jordan Mason or a couple rounds ago.
Ironically, Cactus is also doing a lot of milking right now.
He is doing a lot of milking.
Have you had Cactus?
Or she? We don't know. I have not. Is it good?
No.
All right, Bryce Young was my top pick there. So yeah, he is. I don't hate Brenton Strange. Add on to that stack a little bit. Tank Bigsby also, if we want to add on to our Jacksonville stack, makes some sense. Jalen Noel's fine. Roschon Johnson fine. Adam Thielen, if we want to make him regret the Bryce Young pick. I don't know. Any of those seem fine to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm good with Strange as our first pick, Tyler. Yeah, and then after that, I quite like Roschon Johnson. He's somebody who's steadily risen throughout pretty much all
Algier also. I didn't even say Tyler Algier. Like, he's as good as anybody there, I think. But yeah.
So the bye weeks, anything mattering there? Both on week 5 bye. Tyler, any strong lean?
It's probably Algier or Roschon. I think I'd rather just take the more talented guy with contingent upside in this build and see what we get. And quite frankly, this is a room where if we decide this is 5 we're comfortable with, I'm good with that, because at this point we've punted receiver long enough that and these are 2 tight ends that, like, we got kind of like a pseudo elite tight end. So I think by doing that, we didn't truly punt the position. We took both guys at ADP. They're both stacked up. So in this world, this is a build where I'd say I'd rather chase a stacked third quarterback if we can get it. And if that requires, a 7th receiver, I'm very good with that, because we kind of got 2 profiles I like as far as efficiency is concerned, but also as far as talent profile and the offense attached. I don't think we have to add a third just to do that. I think that's more viable whenever you're putting way less draft capital into it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But yeah, Roschon Johnson has consistently risen up since the draft. I think it's Roschon Johnson is the pick that people like me who are out on DeAndre Swift love to make. It's I don't mind chasing him up the board because I don't believe in DeAndre Swift. And there's the potential that even if they bring in somebody else to that backfield, you go, okay, well, DeAndre Swift could just fall out of favor in the way he has done previously at times, and maybe Roschon Johnson creates a role which he holds. So I'm okay with that. Is there a point, Neil, where you'd stop drafting Roschon Johnson in this range? Like, if he got past Austin Eckler, would you be taking him?
I'd probably still take some. I think he'd be fine at that point. I draft a lot of Roschon right now. I do really like Austin Eckler, so I usually will probably take Austin Eckler first of that duo. I'm trying to see where would that line be. I think I do prefer Ray Davis. So in general, yeah, I guess we're kind of finding. I think I like him better than Braylon Allen. I'll say that. I like him better than Jalen Wright. So I like him where he's going in his range, but it's not I want to chase him up much higher than he is right now, I guess.
Yeah, it just feels difficult for me to look at Jaden Blue and say Jaden Blue's a better pick than Roschon Johnson.
Yeah, and I don't draft a lot of Jaden Blue. I've heard the upside argument, and I get it, but it's a tough click until we hear more, I think.
I personally would love to have gotten Ben Johnson talking about Roschon at all. And I just keep scrolling up in Coach Speak Index Discord, and I'm just not seeing his name. So it doesn't fill me with pleasure and joy that, theoretically, he is the guy behind him. I'd like his name mentioned at least once. DeAndre Swift's name's come up quite a bit. Kyle Monangai standing out in OTAs. Roschon, where are you, brother? Why do you keep disappearing from every coaching staff that knows you?
I'll take nothing over the kind of mixed reports about DJ Moore that Hayden was retweeting today.
Those vibes. Not good.
Not good. Semi-good. Basically, he's getting told off in training camp and
good.
Said, maybe I won't see the ball as much this year.
I haven't drafted a ton of him, so I guess I don't hate that.
Yeah, I'm kind of fine with it. I mean,
it seems Ben Johnson has been consistent in saying, you put in effort or you do not get the ball. I do not care. Which respect, but also terrifying that the response from DJ Moore hasn't been to improve the body language and the effort.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So back on the clock. we could third quarterback looks pretty grim. Tyler, where we're going? What do you think for steerers?
Well, I think we may as well just grab our like sixth and final running back here. I think J.K. Dobbins kind of stands out as a guy that could be still brought into Chicago or somewhere else as a handcuff later on. If we
Neil,
don't,
good with that?
I'm good with it. Yeah, I think I usually click Will Shipley there, but I have no issue with J.K. Dobbins instead.
Yeah, I mean, Shipley was the guy I would have pushed towards, so good to get a little bit different. And then are we going wide receiver here? Anyone standing out to you, Neil?
I don't hate. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is actually kind of interesting to me. Keenan Allen, if you want to just make the bet, if we're making those kind of bets like we did with J.K. Dobbins, I don't hate that.
I do like making that bet.
I like that,
Right.
and I like the idea of having both paired on a roster because while some, obviously these are guys who are getting drafted in virtually every single draft. How many people are clicking? Okay, I can take two guys who currently don't have a team, so I think that's quite fun and gives us some fun potential for this one.
I mean, it seems like the recent news from Keenan Allen's camp is that okay, yes, my preferred spots weren't interested, or at least in the prices I'm wanting, but we can look across the league and say there's a lot of open weak spots for a capable receiver, and Keenan Allen was a very good receiver. In fact, he was the most efficient, most dependable of that Bears trio. And so at this point, any sort of wide receiver camp injury, boom, new spot opens. Get out of camp and go, man, wide receiver 2 or 3 feels a lot worse after preseason. Cool, bam. So from that standpoint, these two have been getting looks. They've been getting talks. They just, no team is saying they're a priority to sign right now, especially without training camp starting. So from a CLV perspective, I'm confident that if teams are already asking, versus Kareem Hunt wasn't given a call basically until, like week 3 or 4. So if these guys are already kind of getting calls and the agents are already working the lines before camp, that tells me that the NFL is interested. They're just, they're not in a rush to sign these vets. And so from that standpoint, it seems like from a pretty nice CLV hit. And it's like these guys were semi-talented. And we know that they just need opportunity. And I feel like these last 2 picks are going to us just try to set up a late stack and call it a day. And from that standpoint, I'm very comfortable with just taking those 2 shots.
Yeah, we'll get to those last picks in a minute. A couple of questions in the chat I want to hit on. We've got Ross wins DK. How do you all feel about McCaffrey? Will he return to form? What about Samson Judkins this year? Like McCaffrey's somebody I've struggled with, and now that he's getting pushed further up the board, I feel like I'm just having to get on board because we know that CMC can give you those seasons and those weeks which throw you. Neil, have you been drafting much CMC?
I have not been. I actually, Richard Rebar was on Pete's show today and was they picked him at 102, I believe, overall, and he's obviously a very sharp guy. Wow. I thought about putting him on my fades list just to have this conversation because I am fading him right now just because of where he's going. Like he is being pushed up drafts. Like I said, I like to get a wide receiver in those early rounds. Obviously you can see the upside case because we've just seen it. If he just stays healthy in that San Francisco offense and continues to get the full workload, he should be really good. Now he did take a step backwards last year in terms of efficiency relative to the year prior. And then obviously he was also hurt most of the year, which also might have caused the inefficiency or the efficiency drop a little bit to some extent. I just, at this point, I'm like, I think it's more likely than not that he plays fewer than 14 games. And I'm not sure that he's guaranteed to continue to get that workload. Like even if he does stay healthy, they might say, we want to keep you healthy by limiting your workload somewhat. Work in Isaac Guerrero, who looked pretty good last year. So I'm not chasing him up the board, but I can't really fault those who do.
Yeah, it's one thing to say he's healthy now, but to say will he stay healthy is an entirely different topic, which I think is really interesting part of it. And then Bryce are saying, how do you all feel about Hunter, Harvey, and Hendy all on one team in redraft, assuming that is Travion Henderson? Tyler, just quickly before we come onto the board, is that too many rookies for you in a redraft league?
No, I mean, winning redraft is getting the league winners, and the rookies could easily be league winners, and especially at running back. Like you're just looking for opportunity and quality. I'd say don't shy away from that. Vets tail off, rookies come on strong.
Is Daniel Jones still available? or Tyler Shuck.
Oh.
And do we have a late stacking partner for either of them? Like, is Alec Pierce still available?
Jones is off the board, and Jesus fucking Christ.
You going Shuck? We have 2 seconds.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and take your 2-2 shout, and quite frankly, we don't need a third quarterback. So at this point, I don't feel like we need
let's
to force
pass on it.
So do we just want a third tight end instead?
Well,
and
I'd be
Juwan, I'm sure. Yeah,
Shook Juwan, but I'd be fine taking Jatavian Sanders and building out a little more Carolina correlation.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout.
I like that.
I think he was fun towards the end of last year.
My thing with Shuck is that just like he's not guaranteed to start all the games. I know that like people want to say that, but like the Kirk Cousins situation, like he's obviously vying for a trade. The Saints could just decide we want to see what this offense looks like with good quality. And they could also just say like, hey, we want to see what every young guy has in this offense. Chuck's also been like one of the most battered old quarterbacks we have coming out. So I'm not automatically tacking him to my rosters because I think there's more risk than the upside cases are making for him. And at that point, like, yeah, I would have loved Dimes. I would have loved a play like that. Those guys go way early, ahead of us. It is what it is. Shuck Juwan would have felt cozy, but by week 7 could have easily just felt like a complete waste of time. And given how we built this team, I think it was just prudent to just go ahead and target spikes, and good call in the Sanders stack, because we now have a nice full triple stacked Bryce with a Zach Charbonnet bring back, and or not Bryce. In my mind, we got Bryce, but no. So like T-Law and McCarthy, like if both these quarterbacks are what we think they are, T-Law breaks out, a la Baker Mayfield. JJ McCarthy is this top 10 fantasy quarterback that we talked about. And if you got so many of their guys attached, boom, like nice. We've now just tried to consolidate as many spikes as possible all year long, and given us 3 shots at a onesie position in the playoffs, and just said that this is enough. And a 2.673 is like data optimal. And we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot because we pushed wide receiver as late as we could. We said we're open to a third quarterback if we want. We played the room, and I think, at the end of the day, you settle for what you can and build the best you can.
Yeah, Neil, how?
I think that this team ended up really good. I think we did not quite 0 RB, but we waited until pick 60 for our first running back. I still feel pretty good about our running back room. Like I'm also like not super high on Caleb Johnson, but he fell to us. We get some exposure to a player that neither of us is like really going out of our way to get. Tyrone Tracy, similarly, I can't read that back room. People have really strong opinions about the backfield. Is it Tyrone Tracy? Is it Cam Scatterbo? How is that going to break down? But if Tyrone Tracy is, so I usually will take whichever one of them falls later. I was drafting a lot of Tyrone Tracy prior to the draft. I think he was, not terrible last year. I thought he was pretty good. I think that it might just be those two, kind of competing for workload there. So I don't hate that pick. I like our quarterback room. Obviously, it could have been a 3 quarterback build, but I think both of these could be just offenses that produce a lot of fantasy points. I think our wide receivers are very clearly really good. We do have a lot of week 8 buys, but I'm getting over my buy phobia.
If Keenan Allen signs for a team who have a week 8 bye, then it's going to look slightly worse when it does. But we'll think positive and hope that he signs somewhere else and goes nuclear in week 8.
Exactly.
We had it's definitely a fun draft, I think, but I really like his team. I like the Jags double stack. I like the kind of little correlations along the way, and I like getting a bit more exposure to your boy JJ McCarthy because he's somebody that I probably haven't drafted as much of as I would have liked. Earlier on in the draft, we had some questions about 6 wide receiver builds. Kuref saying I was doing some 6 wide receiver builds, but got pushed off because ETR did some research for 6 wide receiver teams are pretty dead most of the time. Then Jordan saying was 6 wide receiver dead just last year or all years BBM. I feel like last year 6 wide receiver was bad, not because of 6 versus 7 total receivers, but because 6 wide receiver builds probably went 0 RB, and 0 RB was horrible last year. 0 RB advanced at an average rate last year of 8%, and it was truly diabolical. But like, if you go back to 2021, the advance rate for teams with exactly 6 wide receivers was 17.3%, but only 0.4% to the finals. Like, it was way down on average to the finals. In 2022, it advanced at a 15.6% rate, but then it was green all the way through to the finals. 2023, 16.5%, but then went red as soon as it got to the playoffs and didn't perform particularly well. And then last year, it performed at a 17.7% rate, green all the way through to the finals. So it did do okay. I think it's just all about those kind of combinations stuff. And I'm definitely not saying that ETR are wrong on anything, but I'm not against it. And I think that if we'd wanted to here, if we wanted the third quarterback over the wide receiver, then it would have felt okay. Are you guys kind of feeling more open to 6 wide receivers or more closed off to 6 wide receivers based on any of that kind of talk?
So I have not read the ETR article, but I think people are going to be inclined to read too much into it because they look at it and they're like, oh, there are millions of teams represented here, but really there's just 5 slates that we've looked at so far. It's just such a small sample size. I don't think we need to read too much into what has worked so far in BBM. And I think like last year in particular, it's just like, yeah, a lot of the 6 wide receiver teams are going to be teams that built out 0 RB, and that just it was a really tough year for that. So I would hesitate to read too much into what has happened so far. I still think we can build out some really strong 6 wide receiver teams.
Yeah, love that. Well, look, we're going to start wrapping things up there. We've gone long. We've taken a lot of Neil's time tonight. But Neil, I know you're a very busy man when it comes to streaming. I'll be joining you on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, I believe. But yes. What else you got going on this week?
Yeah, really looking forward to that. That should be a really fun stream. Getting back-to-back Fantasy Sanctuary on the stream. Love to see it. I just put out a short video today, about 30 minutes, going over a couple of 0 RB teams that I forced on DraftKings. I went out of my way. I was like, I just want to draft some 0 RB teams. So I talked about them with JJ Zachariason. And I was like, I know in theory I love it, but I tested that out. So I put that out on my channel today. Tomorrow, I think, probably tomorrow, not tonight, I've been working on a PowerPoint going over my strategy for eliminator drafts, which I feel pretty strongly about. I've had some success in it. I got 2 teams into the top 1% last year, weeks 14 and week 15. I think people make a lot of mistakes in eliminator drafts. That will be behind the paywall. So currently there are 2 people will have access to that. But I'm going to be putting out an eliminator strategy video because I think a lot of people are drafting eliminator right now. And I think a lot of people are making some easy mistakes to fix. Not like huge mistakes, but I think that there are little mistakes that are really going to hurt your odds that a lot of people are making. So putting that strategy video out tomorrow on the channel.
Sweet. Look forward to that. I will be going and signing up to Neil's premium YouTube members only section as soon as this video finishes. Tyler, I know you've got at least one more show today. Where you heading?
I will be joining Bendels and Fantasy Football Garage on their channel tonight for their Monday Ballsy stream. So come see your favorite sex positive streamer join for the Ballsy 6-9 stream tonight. We'll be drafting some teams, getting ballsy. Check us out here on the Sanctuary is hosting Typhel Tower across the pond. It's known as the Trifle Tower. And we'll be doing that here. And then, for 2 drafts, 3rd draft on the Typhel Tower channel. If we get to 200 subs before then we will be giving away our 2nd BBM entry to the fine people that have subscribed to the channel. So go over, hit Typhel, TYFFEL, tell YouTube, no, not Eiffel, Typhel, and hit that subscribe button.
Love it. As for me, you can catch the replay of Fantasy Pros Best Ball Show that I streamed earlier. It'll be up on YouTube tomorrow, and we went strategy by strategy, talking about viability of every kind of major best ball strategy and where we thought they could work in 2025 and how we'd approach them, and loads more written work. I think I'm up to submit daft like 30 articles since the beginning of last month, and at some point I might actually tweet some of them out so people see them a bit more. But for myself, Tyler, Neil, this was so much fun. Appreciate everyone hanging out, and if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll be back.